I just spent 2 nights at the Alila Ventana Big Sur in California, and in this video I'll tell you all about the property, the food, the service, and I'll tell you how to book it for the best deal possible, because this was definitely one of the best hotel redemptions I've ever had. This was one of the nicest, most over-the-top Hyatt properties I've ever stayed at, but it's not perfect, and I'll show you some of the disappointments that I had that I think you're gonna wanna hear about. Cash prices for this property will run you about $2,000 a night minimum, and my room was over $3,000 per night. But I didn't spend a single penny to stay here, and I'll show you exactly how I did that. Before we jump in, if you don't mind hitting that like button for the YouTube algorithm, I'd really appreciate it, and it helps my videos get out there. So a bit about the property itself. This is an adults-only, all-inclusive resort, and it's located in a beautiful area of the California coast called Big Sur. The property is 160 acres, and it's surrounded by the beautiful redwood forest, so there's plenty of hiking and activities to do outdoors. There's about 59 rooms with a range of suites, and the ratio of staff to guests I noticed was really nice at this property. To book this property with cash, it's going to cost a hefty $2,000 per night. Or you can book it through Hyatt's loyalty program for a much better deal. I paid about 45,000 points per night, and because I booked with points, I literally did not spend a single penny to book this property. And unlike other resorts that seem to charge you for everything like Wi-Fi, gym access, parking, breakfast, everything is included in the room rate, at least if you book using Hyatt Points. So my recommendation to you if you want to stay at this property is to definitely book using Hyatt Points, and you could earn Hyatt Points pretty easily by signing up for just 1 or 2 Chase credit cards and transferring those points over to Hyatt. And in my case, I was able to get a pretty incredible redemption of around 7 cents per point. Moving on to the room, I had originally booked a standard room, but I was able to get upgraded the day of to a 1,000 square foot villa. The room was really nice. It had a front balcony and a back balcony upstairs and a nice patio downstairs. A king bed, 2 sinks, bathtub and shower, and some pretty unique amenities. I believe every room comes with a record player, and the check-in area has a ton of classic albums where you can grab a record anytime. And I believe most rooms have a real fireplace, along with a fire kit that you can light a fire in your room, which is really nice. Every night, Alila Ventana provides s'mores for the guests in front of the social house, and you can take those back to your room and roast them in your own fireplace. And your room also comes with some walking sticks, which is really handy for all the hikes and outdoor activities there are around the property. Moving on to the food, I thought it ranged from good to excellent, and I definitely have some recommendations for you if you do end up staying at this property. But there were some experiences with the food that I didn't like, and although it wouldn't change my recommendation to visit this property, it definitely lessened the experience. First up is that one of the restaurants was closed, so the only option was the Sur House, which was not a big deal in my opinion. The Sur House is in a really beautiful location, and pretty much every table has a nice view of the ocean. But during each of the 2 dinners we had at the property, there was a wasp pest problem that was actually really annoying. So every time they brought out our food, a ton of yellow jackets would come and try and take the food off our plates. We're constantly having to swat away 2 or 3 wasps at a time, which is unpleasant by itself, let alone bugs trying to get in your food. That's not really an easy problem for the property to solve, and I don't really know what they can do about it since we're really out in nature, but it really did make the dinner experience go from a 10 probably down to a 7 or an 8 experience. So it seems like kind of a minor annoyance and something that maybe only some people experience, but I did notice other guests dealing with this as well, and people were visibly annoyed. But other than that, every single meal we had was really nice. For any meal, you can order food delivered to your room, but I recommend for breakfast you visit the Sur House. And the French toast was absolutely amazing. It was a 10 out of 10. I like some of their other breakfast items too, like the omelet, but I definitely recommend you try that French toast. For lunch, you could also have food delivered to your room, but you could also have it delivered to you poolside, which is a really beautiful place, and I recommend you eat there. And for dinner, there's tons of great options at the Sur House. We had the filet mignon as well as the salmon, and both were really good. For dessert, there's a really unique apple dish that I heard a lot of guests like, but I had the cheesecake every night and I absolutely loved it. You're allowed to get 2 entrees or an appetizer and an entree with your dinner, and I thought the pastas were just all right, so I'd recommend sticking to some of the meat dishes or trying some of the appetizers. So overall, most dishes were a 10 out of 10, with some being a little bit of a disappointment. And besides the really annoying experience with the wasp, the food overall was really amazing. Moving on to the service, I thought the service was an area that the property really shined, which is to be expected for a property that you're paying $2,000 a night, but still, it was a really great experience. To be more specific, it seemed like every employee possible went above and beyond for you, whether it was the person who parked your car, delivered your water, brought food to your room, taught classes or led hikes, or even just the regular grounds workers. It seemed like every one of them genuinely enjoyed working there, and I found that many of the employees had their own recommendations about the property since I heard that a lot of the employees actually live there on site at the property. When we arrived and the valet took our car, he knew that it was our anniversary, which we had put in our guest notes, and he congratulated us on our anniversary. As well as arriving to our room, we had a special anniversary gift. So it just seemed like they tried to adjust your stay to every little detail, and they paid very close attention to every little request you have, and they make note of it and share it between all of their systems and their different employees. So it was a really amazing experience that way. Moving on to the activities the property has, they provide a few free activities you can do, and I really recommend you try them out. One activity I really liked was a honey tasting class, and they allowed you to sample different honeys from all across the world, including their local bees at the Big Sur property. Another activity I really liked was the hike through the redwood forest, which was more of an easy walk where they just taught us about the different plants and animals in the area. And that was really fun to experience some of the nature and see the redwood trees. And another activity I liked and I recommend if you're interested in hiking was the coastal hike, which was about an hour and 45-minute hike up some steep terrain, and you got some really beautiful views of the coast and the California mountains. Alila Ventana also has some paid activities that you can do, and even though my wife and I didn't do any, since we had plenty to do with the free activities, there were some that I would be interested in if I were to ever go back, such as axe throwing, leather crafting, and foraging. As far as other things around the property, there were definitely some notable amenities worth mentioning. The Japanese bathhouse was a really cool private hot tub type area, and along with an adjacent pool, both of these are clothing optional. I did find that most of the time they were empty, and there was a men's and women's areas, and I noticed also plenty of people did go in with clothing, so you can make it whatever you want. But other than that, there was a really nice pool in front of a nice grassy area with a beautiful view of the coast, as well as a big infinity pool hot tub next to the forest, which always had beautiful views of the sunset. There was also a sauna on the property, as well as a small gym with a lot of aerobic equipment, as well as some light weights. And there's also several hiking trails leading off the property if you'd like to go on a hike. So to wrap up my final thoughts on this area, I thought this was a perfect property if you want some rest and relaxation, but I also found that there was plenty to do, and I didn't feel like I was wasting time or being lazy. So it was a nice mix between relaxing in nature and also being active and having plenty of fun and valuable things to do. I also found that because it was all you can eat and the food was so good, we tended to eat a lot. And by the time the next meal came around, we weren't always ready for the next meal. So be prepared to work off some food if you do stay at this property. So like I said before, this is one of my best point redemptions ever, getting 7 cents per point at this property. And it was so nice that I literally didn't spend a single cent to book this property, unlike many other properties you have to book when you pay for parking and resort fees, etc. So overall, would I recommend this property? Yes, I definitely recommend this property, but know that even though you can pay with points, it still is pretty expensive point-wise, and you can stay at some really nice places for half the cost, points or cash. So for me, I would save this place for only my most special occasions, and I guess if you have plenty of points to burn, then stay here as much as possible by all means. But at least for me, in my situation, I know those points could get me more nights at some other really nice properties. If you have any questions about how to book properties like this using points, then I definitely recommend you check out my video called How to Travel Free Using Credit Cards. If you have any questions at all, put them down in the comments and I'd be happy to answer. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.